It began like a story from a high-stakes thriller, one that no one could have predicted, yet everyone would whisper about in disbelief for years to come. In the heart of London, in the autumn of 2012, a man walked into the lives of the unsuspecting elite, carrying a smile that could disarm suspicion and a confidence that masked a labyrinth of lies. Alexander "Alex" Reid was not just any charmer. He was a meticulously crafted illusion, a walking paradox of elegance and deceit, whose every word seemed woven from truth, but delivered with a precision only the most seasoned con men could master. Disclaimer: content is for awareness and educational purposes only. Viewer discretion advised. From the very first evening he entered the glittering world of London's social scene, Alex's presence was magnetic. Women admired him, men respected him, and financiers regarded him with a mix of curiosity and cautious trust. He hosted dinner parties in lavish penthouses overlooking the Thames, attended charity galas with calculated charm, and appeared as a man whose credentials were impeccable, whose investments seemed visionary. Behind the polished veneer, however, lay a darker, more sinister narrative, one that would slowly unravel, leaving victims questioning their judgment and the very nature of trust. Alex's rise was not accidental. Each interaction was strategic. He targeted those who were vulnerable to flattery, those whose ambitions or fears made them susceptible to manipulation. With a subtle blend of empathy and persuasion, he extracted personal stories, financial details, and secrets that would later become tools for his schemes. By the time the first hints of deception emerged, he had already positioned himself as indispensable, a friend, an advisor, a mentor. The audacity of his confidence made suspicion almost impossible. Even those closest to him would later recount moments where his charm was both intoxicating and disorienting. One former associate described it as a hypnotic presence. You wanted to believe him, even when your instincts screamed otherwise. It was this very duality, the man who appeared generous and trustworthy, yet harbored motives that were anything but, that set the stage for a series of cons that would shock an entire nation. As whispers of missing funds and inconsistent accounts began to circulate, Alex's brilliance became increasingly evident. He didn't merely deceive, he orchestrated, ensuring that every lie, every fabricated story, was part of a carefully constructed narrative that insulated him from immediate suspicion. His charm was a weapon, his persona a shield, and his targets were caught in a web so intricate that few realized the depth of the betrayal until it was far too late. By the end of 2012, law enforcement and private investigators alike were beginning to notice patterns in the chaos he left behind. Victims were not only financially ruined, but emotionally scarred, left grappling with the reality that the man they trusted most was a master manipulator. Yet even as his empire of lies began to crumble, Alex remained a figure of fascination, a reminder that the line between admiration and exploitation can be frighteningly thin. What drove a man to such extremes? Was it ambition, greed, or something darker, something rooted in the very psychology of charm and deception itself? The answers remained elusive, even as investigators pieced together the fragments of a story that was stranger than fiction. If this story has captured your attention so far, kindly comment, "Deceived by Charm." Share this story with everyone in your contacts who needs to understand the danger of manipulation. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and follow for more chilling, real-life crime stories. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, because the next chapter reveals how Alex's meticulously planned world of deception began to collapse in ways no one could have predicted. As 2013 unfolded, Alexander Reid's web of deception began to tighten. By now, Alex had firmly entrenched himself among London's social elite and influential business circles. He was no longer just a charismatic figure at parties. He had become a trusted advisor, a man whose counsel was sought on investment strategies, charity initiatives, and even personal decisions. But behind the velvet glove, there was a fist of manipulation, and the first cracks in his meticulously crafted facade were starting to appear. One of his earliest victims, a wealthy entrepreneur named Victoria Hale, had invested over £500,000 into what she was told was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fund a new tech startup. Alex had presented the project with impeccable detail, a fully drafted business plan, a polished prototype and endorsements from fabricated financial analysts. Victoria, captivated by his charm and reassured by his apparent expertise, handed over the funds without hesitation. Weeks later, she began noticing irregularities, emails that didn't add up, documents that seemed off, and promises that were never fulfilled. When she confronted Alex, he smiled that signature smile, dismissed her concerns with gentle reasoning, and subtly shifted blame onto supposed third-party partners. By then, he had learned the first rule of high-level deception: keep doubt suspended with confidence and distraction. Meanwhile, Alex's schemes grew bolder. In May 2013, he orchestrated what would become one of the most audacious cons of his career. Claiming to represent a consortium of European investors, he convinced several high-profile individuals to pool funds into a luxury real estate deal in central London. The deal was elaborate, involving legal documents, signed contracts, and even staged site visits. On the surface, everything appeared legitimate. Yet behind the scenes, Alex was siphoning funds into offshore accounts, leaving no trace for his victims to follow. Friends and associates, who once celebrated his charm, began sensing something was amiss. There were subtle inconsistencies: private meetings that didn't align with public statements, financial documents that seemed slightly off, and a growing reluctance to share verifiable information. Alex was careful, always a step ahead, anticipating questions and crafting plausible answers. He understood human psychology in ways that made skepticism feel like betrayal. His charisma was so potent that even those most suspicious found themselves doubting their own instincts. The deeper the investigation went, the more chilling the picture became. Alexander Reid wasn't just committing opportunistic fraud, he was a calculated manipulator. Someone who had studied his victims, identified their weaknesses, and exploited them with precision. Each con was more than financial. It was psychological, leaving victims questioning their judgment, self-worth, and ability to trust. By the end of 2013, whispers of missing funds and financial anomalies had reached law enforcement and private investigators. Yet even as the net began to tighten around him, Alex remained a paradox. The charming figure at social gatherings, the trusted advisor in boardrooms, and simultaneously, the architect of betrayal on a scale that shocked those who had once celebrated him. Could the man who had so effortlessly charmed an entire nation truly be stopped? How many more victims would fall before the truth was fully exposed? The unraveling was just beginning, and what came next would push Alex's schemes and the consequences to unimaginable heights. If this story has gripped you so far, comment "exposed charm." Share this video with everyone who must understand the danger of manipulation. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and follow for more gripping real-life crime stories. Turn on the notification bell, because the next chapter reveals the shocking collapse of Alex's empire and the first real signs of justice approaching. By early 2014, Alexander Reid's world was teetering on the edge of exposure. The very charm and audacity that had allowed him to weave such an elaborate web of deception were beginning to unravel under scrutiny. The first public cracks appeared when investigative journalists and former associates began piecing together inconsistencies that Alex had so carefully hidden. Anonymous tips poured into financial watchdogs, and victims who had once remained silent started coming forward, recounting eerily similar tales of seduction, persuasion, and betrayal. One of the most damning revelations came from a young entrepreneur named Daniel Merton. Daniel had invested a considerable sum into Alex's so-called luxury property consortium, believing in promises of extraordinary returns backed by meticulously forged legal documents. The returns never materialized, and soon Daniel discovered that the property deals were fictitious. What was worse, he realized that Alex had cultivated relationships with key stakeholders solely to give his schemes credibility. Daniel's heartbreak was compounded by guilt. He had encouraged his friends and business partners to invest as well, unknowingly amplifying Alex's con. The media caught wind of these emerging stories, and Alex, ever the master manipulator, attempted to redirect suspicion. He staged public appearances, offered plausible explanations, and even volunteered to participate in independent audits, all designed to project transparency while buying himself time. His ability to maintain composure, even under pressure, was unnerving. Victims who had once believed in him were forced to confront a painful truth. Alex's genius lay not in intelligence alone, but in his uncanny ability to exploit trust and admiration. However, his boldness had limits. By mid-2014, private investigators hired by several high-profile victims began uncovering the paper trail that led to offshore accounts, fraudulent contracts, and a network of accomplices. Each discovery was a blow to Alex's carefully constructed persona, eroding his credibility with every passing day. His social gatherings, once filled with laughter and admiration, became tense arenas where whispers and suspicious glances replaced casual chatter. Meanwhile, law enforcement started connecting the dots across multiple jurisdictions. Scotland Yard and financial crime units collaborated to trace the complex web of deceit Alex had spun across the UK and parts of Europe. The deeper investigators dug, the more chilling the picture became. Alex wasn't just committing isolated fraud, he was orchestrating a large-scale operation designed to manipulate, control, and drain resources from unsuspecting victims. As 2014 drew to a close, Alex's charm, which had once been his shield, began to fail him. Even those who had once been infatuated with his charisma started questioning the man behind the smile. Could someone so meticulous truly have been this reckless? And, more importantly, would justice arrive before more victims were ruined financially and emotionally? If this story has gripped you so far, comment Unmasked Charm, share this video with anyone who needs to learn the signs of deception, subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc, and follow for more shocking real-life crime stories. Turn on the notification bell, because the next part dives into the dramatic unraveling of Alex Reid's empire, the exposures, the betrayals, and the legal consequences that no one saw coming. By early 2015, the momentum against Alexander Reid had reached a fever pitch. What had once been whispers and anonymous complaints escalated into a full-blown public scandal, with news outlets across the UK and Europe reporting on the magnitude of his deception. The victims were no longer isolated voices. They had banded together, forming advocacy groups and collaborating with financial investigators to expose the full extent of Alex's schemes. Their stories were harrowing. Retirement savings vanished overnight, business partners ruined, and families left struggling because of the trust they had placed in a man who wielded charm as a weapon. One particularly striking case involved a retired school teacher, Margaret Hollis, who had been convinced to invest her life savings into Alex's innovative tech startup venture. Margaret, a woman who had lived a life of prudence and patience, watched helplessly as her nest egg disappeared. Her emotional testimony captured the attention of journalists and social media alike. The image of a silver-haired woman, once proud and self-sufficient, reduced to tears while recounting her trust in Alex, struck a chord across communities. Each victim's story, though unique, painted a consistent portrait. A man who could sense vulnerabilities, exploit emotions, and manipulate perceptions to the point of financial and psychological devastation. Alex's methods of evasion grew increasingly audacious. He began creating false identities, transferring assets through offshore accounts, and hiring lawyers to draft seemingly legitimate contracts designed to stall investigations. Yet, the deeper he tried to hide, the more obvious his patterns became. Investigators noted a peculiar consistency in the timing of his moves, the nature of his promises, and the sophistication of his forgeries. Even his charm, the very trait that had made him so successful, started to become a liability. Acquaintances and former allies began cooperating with authorities to protect themselves. The legal net tightened around him as multiple jurisdictions began to coordinate. Scotland Yard's financial crime unit collaborated with Europol, uncovering shell companies, fake invoices, and a labyrinth of digital footprints Alex had left behind. One breakthrough came when investigators traced a series of luxury car purchases to an untraceable account linked to Alex's name. These tangible pieces of evidence provided the first concrete steps toward dismantling his empire. The complexity of his schemes was staggering, but every layer of deception had a weakness, and the investigators were methodical in peeling them back. At the same time, Alex's public persona began to crumble. Once greeted with admiration at elite social gatherings, he now faced pointed questions and suspicious stares. Former friends turned critics, and his social media presence became a battlefield of accusations and denials. The man who had seduced an entire nation with charm and audacity was beginning to face the human consequences of his manipulation: public shame, scrutiny, and a growing realization that escape would not be easy. As the tension escalated, one critical question loomed. Could Alexander Reid, the master manipulator, survive the unraveling of his meticulously constructed world? Or would justice finally catch up to a man who had deceived so many with a smile? If this story has gripped you so far, comment "Expose Charm." Share this video with anyone who needs to see the warning signs of deceit. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on the notification bell. The next part will reveal the shocking collapse of Alex Reid's empire, the courtroom confrontations, and the emotional aftermath that left victims forever changed. By the summer of 2016, Alexander Reid's world had begun to collapse in ways no one could have imagined. The investigation had turned into a global pursuit, spanning the UK, several European countries, and even connections in Africa, where some of his shell companies were registered. Every forged document, every offshore transaction, and every extravagant claim that had once seemed untouchable now served as undeniable evidence against him. The media dubbed it the fall of the charmer, and social feeds were flooded with news articles, opinion pieces, and personal testimonies of those whose lives had been upended. The courtroom drama was as riveting as any crime series. Victims were present, many for the first time facing the man who had so expertly manipulated them. Margaret Hollis, the retired schoolteacher, recounted the betrayal in a trembling voice that echoed through the hall. "He didn't just steal my money, he stole my sense of safety, my belief that people could be trusted." Her words, filled with grief and defiance, captured the very essence of the case. Alexander Reid's crime was not just financial, it was deeply personal, attacking the very trust that forms the fabric of human connection. Witness after witness painted a chillingly consistent portrait. Business partners described elaborate pitches that never led to profits, luxury purchases disguised as investments, and promises that sounded too good to refuse. Friends and acquaintances, once dazzled by his charm, admitted they had ignored nagging doubts until it was too late. Psychologists called him a textbook case of a manipulative narcissist, capable of reading emotions, exploiting vulnerabilities, and leaving emotional wreckage behind. As prosecutors meticulously detailed the evidence, the scale of his deception became overwhelming. Hundreds of victims were affected, millions of pounds siphoned through complex financial structures, and countless lives disrupted. The defense, which had relied heavily on Reid's charisma and supposed credibility, faltered under the weight of verifiable documents, expert testimony, and first-hand accounts. It was a masterclass in the collapse of a con artist whose own sophistication became his undoing. When the verdict was finally read, the courtroom was silent. Guilty on multiple counts of fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy, Alexander Reid faced decades behind bars. For many of the victims, relief mingled with lingering trauma. The financial restitution process was slow, complicated, but necessary. Counseling services were offered to those psychologically impacted, highlighting a truth often overlooked in crime stories. Financial deception leaves invisible scars as deep as physical crime. Yet, beyond the legal resolution, the case sparked a broader societal reflection. How can charm be weaponized? How easily do appearances and persuasive words cloak deceit? Communities and financial advisors began promoting awareness campaigns to help ordinary citizens identify warning signs before falling prey to similar schemes. Reid's story became a cautionary tale, a vivid reminder that intelligence, charisma, and eloquence do not equal trustworthiness. The final scene of this saga is one of profound contrast. Alexander Reid, once feted and admired, now stripped of freedom and influence. Victims, once silenced, now empowered by truth and resilience. The moral is stark. Deception may succeed temporarily, but patterns of betrayal are eventually exposed, and justice, though sometimes delayed, finds its way. As the screen fades, the questions linger. Could Reid have been stopped earlier? Were there warning signs missed by those who trusted him? What lessons can we carry forward in a world where charisma can mask danger? Share your thoughts and personal reflections in the comments below. If this story has gripped you, Comment exposed charm. Share with everyone who must see the warning signs of deceit. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on the notification bell. This is Crime Chronicles TVc, your daily dose of real crime stories. Stay tuned for more gripping tales of deception, betrayal, and survival that will keep you questioning. In the end, can anyone truly hide their darkness forever?